I always found games with two sets of stories going on at the same time to be pretty fascinating. You know, the story that's immediately happening in the foreground and the one that's happening in the background that you don't see all the way through, instead only get like bits and pieces of through like collectibles. So you get a sense of what's going on, but not the full picture. I suppose another way of looking at it is getting a glimpse of what's really going on and what you're really fighting for. In Max Payne 3, one of the collectibles that you can get is the golden gun pieces. And once you collected all pieces for a certain gun, it would then become golden, obviously, but it would also get a boost in damage. So a pretty cool reward all things around. It's just that I personally was never a fan of this. Not the damage boost per se, but the gold paint job that the weapons get. This is because Max Payne 3 is a very realistic game that takes itself very seriously. So seeing Max run around with these golden guns just seems so out of place for a game like this. And I always wished that there was a way to turn the camos off. Alright, so I semi-recently played through Dead Rising 2, and I kinda noticed something during the final boss of Overtime mode. Now, during this boss fight, you need to attack TK while also trying to keep Katie and Stacy from falling down into the zombie horde below. And I do have to mention that this is taking place in the stadium at the beginning, because there is a neat feature of them being featured on like the Jumbotron, as the camera follows them as they slowly drop down. And it's just, I know these are one of those questions that you're not really supposed to overthink or even ask, but who's controlling the camera? I mean, this takes place at the end of Overtime mode, so that means the entirety of Fortune City has been cleaned out of people. And I'm pretty sure also that all of TK's goons are dead by this point, unless he somehow made a zombie control it. Nope, I'm definitely overthinking it. Alright, GTA San Andreas takes place in 1992, and I bring this up because it's really funny to drive around and see this. Now, I wasn't alive in 1992, but since this is a GTA game, I would imagine that these numbers are like over-exaggerated for that time period. And this is just funny because although back then that might have been highway robbery prices, those are prices that today we would just be begging for to come back. In Banjo-Kazooie, whenever you got a Jiggy, Banjo would do this neat little dance every time. And I mean, don't get me wrong, it is cute, and it's one of those small little details that go like a far way and make the whole game like a better experience overall. It's just that I never personally was a fan of this. Like the fact that every time you pick one up, you were forced to stop playing for like 10 to 15 seconds. And I honestly relish every time you pick it up in like a different form or whatever and he doesn't do the dance. And although I'm probably in the minority here, I'm very grateful that in the sequel that they removed this. So now I could just pick up the Jiggy and keep on trucking. In Call of Duty World at War's multiplayer, if you managed to get 7 kills without dying, you would be rewarded with dogs. And if you were on the team that was getting the dogs called on, you would be able to kill the dogs and get XP, which you know is normal. If you destroy a kill streak, you get XP for it. But in this game, and only this game to my knowledge, correct me if I'm wrong, there's a special thing that happens when you kill a dog. In like Team Deathmatch, or I guess even Free-for-All, which is that the amount of score that you have for your team actually goes up as well. So instead of having like even 50s and 60s, it would be like 53, 57, 48, you know, just random numbers like that. And it's just, I thought this was a neat little thing that it's kind of unfortunate to not see in any of the other Call of Duty multiplayers. The idea that destroying kill streaks or killing them would add up to your team's score instead of just your own. So the Simpsons arcade game came out very early in The Simpsons' like existence, 1991 to be exact. And the show would have only have been in season 2 at that point, or maybe even season 2 wasn't airing at that point, but I digress. It's just really funny that this game came out so early that it's only chock full of references specifically only to the first season. And with the first season kind of being a black sheep, it's just that in future Simpsons stuff, they very, like, rarely would reference the first season. But yeah, the references include the arcade kid in the first level, the ape enemy in the 5th level that has Homer's attacks, and there are others like the appearance of Dr. Monroe, but I unfortunately don't have enough time to list anything else. And yeah, it's just really neat to see these relics from The Simpsons' early years. So in the first Max Payne game, there's a funny little cutscene of them doing a jab at Microsoft that I'm actually gonna real quick play right now.
Nothing seems to stop Acer Corporation's phenomenal victory march. Incredibly, the stocks are still rocketing. Worried experts already see a danger in the company's success. Some have gone as far as to say that Acer Corporation is about to become an even bigger monopoly than Microsoft ever was.
And this is just funny because in the Xbox version of the game, this cutscene is just non-existent. Like, the TV isn't even on to activate it. And it's just really funny to see this joke about the corporation whose console this was made for just not be there. They didn't attack them on their home turf. I guess they were too scared to, or they were told to remove it, either way. Although I should also note that this scene was also cut from the PS2 version, so I guess they were trying to be better safe than sorry. Alright, so horror games are games that are made for the pure, reason of scaring the player. Like, through where the location of where the game takes place, the atmosphere especially, and worst of all, what happens when you end up dying. And when you play the game for the first few times, this can be very effective on you. But the unfortunate truth is, the more you play a game, the more you get used to its scares. And the more nullified they become, the less of a unique edge the game has. But that's just how horror games kind of are, because you can truly only experience something once, and then every other time it's just diminishing returns. Alright, so normally in games, whenever you pick up a collectible and then die, usually the collectible is still counted as taken. And it's just kind of a major convenience factor because then you don't have to go back and pick it up. So then I really do have a gripe with games that don't have this feature. Because I mean, yeah, it's just the minor thing of needing to go and pick it up again. But the other option is that you might get so far within that checkpoint that you get so invested into it that you might forget that you even picked up a collectible. So when you go back to the beginning of that checkpoint, you just completely forget to pick it up again, and that really sucks. There are many stealth-based missions throughout the Call of Duty series, like the one in MW2 where you sneak onto the airfield during the winter storm in the Arctic or whatever. And these stealth missions are really well done. They always have you sneaking around and have potential to knock out enemies so they don't know you're there. They're really cool. But one thing I've always hated about them is that they don't go stealth all the way through. Like in every single one, there's a certain point where your cover is purposely blown or whatever, and then the rest of the mission is just done normally. And there's only one mission that I could actually think of that's 100% truly stealth, and it's in Call of Duty Ghosts. It's the mission where your plane gets shot down and you crash in the jungle. And to my knowledge, this is the only mission where you could actually stealth your way the entire way through. Alright, so I'm probably not alone when I say I really hated that one mission in San Andreas where Tenpenny makes you go all the way back to Los Santos trailing a guy, because the whole mission is just one long drive, and then once you get there you just have to follow him even more, and it's just so boring. And then on top of that, if you don't save before this mission, like at the gas station, if you fail it, you have to go all the way back to San Fierro just to retry it. So I gotta say, when it finally gives you the chance to kill him, it feels very cathartic because you're killing the person who just made you go through all that bullshit. Alright, so there's a debate that me and my friend had a good while back. It was during me and him trying to 100% GTA 5, and I was doing the stunt jumps and I got to the really hard one where you have to jump onto that small little lighthouse island. So then I figured that I would go do the easier ones and then leave that one for last so I could just focus on it completely. While my friend made the argument I should do it as it came so that way I could get it done, because there's no point in doing the other ones if I can't get this gets one done. So that was the argument, and I guess which side of this would you guys fall on? And obviously this argument doesn't have to be limited to just GTA 5 or even gaming. Alright, so this is just a neat little thing that I noticed in the Xbox version of Sonic Heroes, which is that the buttons for the Xbox actually match the buttons for the three, well, at least for Sonic's team, the colors of their characters. For Tails, it's the yellow Y, then for Knuckles, it's the red B, and then for Sonic, it's the blue X to use stuff. And while this probably wasn't completely intentional, because it's probably the same button mappings for the other consoles, but it's just cool to see them with the same colors, the right colors. So on Black Ops 2 Zombies, there was Easter eggs on certain maps that you could do one side for or another, with slightly different steps for each side and different rewards even. But the thing about these Easter eggs was that you weren't able to redo that one specific side that you did unless you ended up doing the other side. And it just kind of fascinates me that if you ended up in a lobby where one person did one side and the other person did the other, you just can't do the Easter egg then. Which is also kind of funny because I think this is the only game where something like that can actually end up happening. I always hated it that in LEGO Star Wars that your partners never did any damage to the enemies. I mean, it just makes them literally useless. They're just standing there shooting all their shots and hitting the enemy directly on, but it's not doing anything. Or hitting them with the lightsaber and it's just nothing. Or when they deflect bullets, they always seem to purposely miss the enemy. Now, I haven't played any of the other LEGO series or even the modern ones. Is this something that, like, goes away after a while? Does your partner actually become useful in one of these games? I'm genuinely curious if they changed it at some point or they just kept it the same all the way through. Alright, so this always kind of bothered me. Why at the beginning of 2 Betrayals does it show Master Chief holding an assault rifle when in the mission itself he starts with a shotgun and a plasma pistol? I get it's something like they probably didn't model the shotgun for cutscenes, but still, it just kind of bugs me. And it makes me wonder if they shied away from showing him with weapons in the cutscenes, because I tried to look through the rest of the game, but I couldn't find any other cutscenes that start with him with a weapon, because then it would probably lead to the same issue of starting the mission with different guns than you saw in the cutscene. Alright, spoilers for Dead Rising 2, but at the end of this game, Rebecca, the reporter that you've been working with the entire game, gets shot in the head by the twist villain of Sullivan. And it's just when this happens, when you get control of your character again after the cutscene, her body just mysteriously vanishes. And it's just like, that makes no sense. Why is the body just gone all of a sudden? One of the main characters of the story just up and disappears. And I think the people over at Capcom realize this because when the same cutscene happens in Off the Record, the body for Sullivan, who gets shot in that game, actually is there. And you could actually, like, interact with it. Oh, and apparently Rebecca's body is there too. So yeah, they definitely realized their mistake and made up for it. Alright, in Doom 2 we are introduced to the Archvile, a demon with the ability to resurrect dead enemies. And I do believe he can resurrect all types of enemies, no matter how big or small they were. But to my knowledge, there is something that he can't resurrect, which is the other dead Marines. Like non-possessed ones. And it's just kind of like, why can't he? Because if he was able to, then you'd be able to fight someone who's like just like you. It'd be like a death match. Although I guess it'd be a bit too hard. I don't know, just a neat little idea. Alright, so here's something about the Black Ops 2 zombie storyline that doesn't really make sense to me. Now, the Victus crew gets from map to map because Richtofen teleports them there. Or at least he does from Transit to Die Rise, since he wants them to turn on the pylons so he can control the zombies. But since his side of the Easter eggs aren't canons, Maxis' side is canon, why did he teleport them from Transit to Die Rise? You know, if all 3 pylons need to be on in order for the Easter egg ending to happen, if they did Maxis' side in Transit, why would he continue their journey just so they could help Maxis? Really doesn't make much sense when you actually think about it. So the Terminator game for the Sega CD follows the plot of the movie, which any good licensed game based off of something really should. But the issue kind of comes in that it kind of follows it way too much, basically to its detriment, and this comes in the form of the final boss, which is obviously the Terminator himself. And well, basically, if you have never seen the movie or just don't remember it like I did, you will have no idea how to defeat him. You'll just keep shooting at him thinking you're doing damage or not, but just have honestly no idea what to do until you just fumble along and accidentally shoot him while crouched, because that takes out his legs, and that's how the movie ended. But again, if you just don't remember that or don't get lucky, then you're just gonna end up not being able to beat the game and game overing, like I have a couple times. So I played the original Castlevania, skipped 2, and then played the third one, or started playing the third one. And when I played it, I had trouble with the stairs. I couldn't get on them, and then when I got on them, I couldn't move or get off of them. And it was just kind of bugging me because what was I doing wrong? Was there something wrong with the stairs, or me? Eventually, I figured out that the stairs only work when you press up and down and nothing else, which really bugged me because I remember it being different in Castlevania 1, so much so that I actually went back to that game and figured out I was right. In that game, you're able to use up and down combined with left or right. And it's just like, why did they change this? Why did they make stairs so difficult? It's so much more annoying now. So Mario Kart 64 is a game you just cannot lose when you really think about it, because if you come at a placement that's worse than 4th, you could just reset the race and go again, with absolutely no penalty. And this is the only Mario Kart you could do this in, because no game after this or even before this had this option. Or actually, I misspoke, the game after this, Super Circuit, and the game before this, Super Mario Kart, had this, but still, in those games you only had you could only do it 3 times, whereas this game it's just completely unlimited. So when you beat Luigi's Mansion, you get something after it called the Hidden Mansion, and to my knowledge this is basically the same game again but much more difficult. And I say that because I never have personally played it, because when I was a child I didn't understand it. I just figured that the game was allowing you to replay the game over again with no changes, and because of that I just figured, why would I replay it on this when I could just delete the save and then just replay the game. So yeah, I just deleted them and never was the wiser. I remember when I was a kid I had these SpongeBob GBA games that I didn't really play. Like, I played them, but I didn't properly play them. Instead of like playing through the game normally, I would just go to the password generator thing and just enter in random numbers and letters until I got a password that basically unlocked the whole game. And I remember it always being like the last few letters that always guaranteed me some late game save. I don't know, this is one of those things that I look back on and kinda regret doing, since I never really properly played the games until many years later.